Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Sprites of Life podcast. I'm Lucas.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Don.
Don's back.
Don's back. We yeah, Logan was fun, but we miss you, buddy.
I'm sorry, I'm
This
back.
stupid work.
Stupid. I mean, hey, we got you back just in time for our last Halloween episode, though.
And
So I
speaking
mean,
of work, who wants to game when you can play a game that's might as well be work?
I don't play Coaster Typhoon anymore.
Oh, but that is a great game. Or Zoo
That is work.
Tycoon.
That's work. I need to make sure the park is both safe enough to pass the inspectors, but danger enough to kill at least one passenger.
You actually obeyed the rules while every other teenage boy was building water slides to launch inflatable tubes across the park to explode.
Yo, that was peak at the time. But I think today we kind of need to go something a bit darker.
Darker than Mr. Bones' Wild Ride.
Even darker because the ride never ends.
Don, you are a connoisseur of Elden Ring, are you not?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I like all the FromSoft titles. You guys have put up with my hype for the 3 years. I think it was first announced in 2019, and in typical FromSoft fashion, they went, "Hey, we're making a thing." Also, George R. R. Martin's involved, and then they told us nothing for like 3 years, which is really kind of how they do stuff. And you know what? It hasn't really failed them so far.
They're one of the few companies who can just like keep on swinging and they don't miss like really ever, which is weird.
Yeah, they take their time. I know Dark Souls 2 is considered one of the more divisive FromSoft titles of their recent stretch. I personally really like Dark Souls 2. I think it's probably the best PvP. But yeah, even like arguably the worst FromSoft game is better than most games, I would say. I mean, and they're definitely not everyone's cup of tea. But there's like a lot of, especially the newer ones, they've really made them a lot more open and a lot more ways to play the game. So, like if maybe, you're getting beat, trying to do melee, maybe you do a range build, maybe you mix it up, maybe you go to a different area. So like I think they're more approachable now than they've ever been too.
I also love the fact that they picked up Armored Core and it's like, "Oh yeah, no, we're also making Armored Core because we're bored. We're bored, so we're doing Armored Core 6."
Yeah, I know. I had the like Armored Core, I think 1 or 2 for the PS1. I can't remember which one, but it was it was a good time. I did not complete it when I was like 7.
I just like if you look at their track record starting 2015 or 2014. So you got Dark Souls 2, Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3.
I mean, you're skipping Demon Souls in Dark Souls 1.
Well, I'm just looking at a straight run of games for almost consecutive years from 14 to 15, 16 Dark Souls 3, 18 they had a remaster so they took a break. 2019 was Sekiro and then Elden Ring. That's a crazy run.
Yeah, and that's not even counting like Armored Core or
I mean, you can run this back to 2011 and start just Dark Souls or
well, Demon Souls, I think is what, 09?
yeah, oh 09, yeah.
Yeah, so basically, these guys keep on hitting. Don loves them, and I've never played any of these games. Why not talk about some critters?
The only thing about Elden Ring that I know is let me solo her.
Ah, the man, the myth, the legend. I can't believe they got him a sword.
They
He
did.
earned it.
The company got him a sword for being awesome. I mean, that man can die happy. That man can pass away in peace.
The sort of, I guess, like, well, I mean, normal co-op's very heavy, but the way they do co-op, the way they do all of the online interactions in the Souls games, because there's no real mic or anything, I feel like have a very sort of organic, because it's all through either gestures or your name and kind of stuff like that. So there's a very like the interactions can be very interesting, or a guy tricks you and hits you over the head with a giant lava hammer. So like it could go either way.
Yeah, no. Like all things, life can go one way or the other. We do have some news to cover first, and we have the highest priority of news to cover.
This might as well be March Madness because we're on upset alert.
Oh yeah, no, it is. It was Fat Bear Week about a week ago after this recording, and Bear Force One 747 has been dethroned.
Was he like a 10-time champ?
He's won like a lot. He
Something
has won quite a
ridiculous.
bit.
Bear Force One, the greatest name in Bears.
Yeah, no, we got a new champion now. We got a brand new bear in charge. I believe her name, let me pull up the
It was a mama bear described as a fierce queen named 128 Grazer.
Oh, Grazer. Okay, so while I was looking up Grazer, one of the things they keep bringing up is the fact that she's nursed 2 litters of cubs, is an exemplary fisher, and she will attack much larger. She will attack like larger bears even when she's not as fat. Like she is a fierce competitor. So Bear Force One has lost to a true, a true queen.
I like this quote from I don't know what their role is, but they said that because she didn't have cubs this season, she was able to focus on herself and she had an advantage over the female bears.
I mean, if you pull up a picture of her, you can see why she won. I mean, she's just absolutely huge. And for those who have no idea what Fat Bear Week is, the National Park Service up in Alaska basically makes a poll tournament bracket style of all the bears after they've fattened up for the winter. So bears don't truly hibernate like they talk about on TV, but they still have to bulk up on all that weight before the winter sets in. And so they'll usually use the salmon coming in to bulk up. Because of this, they decided to make a poll about who would be the best fat bear, have a bunch of people vote, and over 1 million people vote for this.
I'm pretty sure that the winner got like a million. But do you want to know who got second place?
Who?
32 Chunk.
Chunk. Oh my god. What a bear.
A
What a
large
guy.
and dominant male is what he is described as, but not
But
dominant enough.
I mean, shout out to Bear Force One. He'll have a place in our heart, but we have a new queen. Long live her reign,
I
or at
just
least
looked
for
like
the
an idiot to a coworker because they were doing a tournament bracket for Fat Bear Week, and I was
oh
like,
god.
Bear Force One. That's all you got to do. And I look like an idiot now. Don't know my bears.
Nah, I mean it's cool. I mean, it's as fun as this is to do. It's also a great way to get people involved in conservation because if you ever threaten these bears in any capacity, now you have this to use against the public of like, hey, if they keep drilling for oil here or they keep cutting down trees here, we'll lose Fat Bear Week, and that's enough. Sometimes that really is all you need in conservation. You just need a meme.
1.4 million votes. So that like even a fraction of that. If you get a fraction of that to care, that is significant.
Yes, I love that this became a thing. Now, we did have a bit of news. I want to talk about a company who actually got what they deserved for one. But there was a company that made a terrible decision, paid for it, and had their CEO fired recently. Everyone give a thunderous round of applause to Unity for almost completely annihilating much of the indie game market. Well done, them.
Yeah, I like there had to be a lot of thought put into this, and I don't know why those thoughts happened the way that they did.
So are either of you familiar with like the details of what Unity's proposed deal was?
Weren't they going to start charging like a subscription service for like developers to use Unity?
It's a lot. It's not so much a subscription service. What they were planning on doing was starting in 2024, they would have added a 20 cents fee per install of game once the title had sold 200,000 copies and that the developer had taken in $200,000 in revenue. The idea was that they would make more money off people who got better copies. Now, for something like, I don't know, Pokemon Go, they would be raking in, millions of dollars. They'd be making so much money. But the problem is, these install fees would now be affecting, like, if you're a new developer and you're just two guys making a game and your game shoots off to the moon, now you're owing this company thousands and thousands of dollars that you don't have, which is real bad. And suddenly everyone realizing that, oh god, if we get good in this game with this engine, we could be absolutely screwed. And so this caused a whole bunch of game developers to lose it.
Rightfully so.
Like the people who made Cult of the Lamb were like, yeah, January 1st, we're deleting the game. By the way, This deal was not for like new games being made. Any existing game under their banner was going to be put under this. How are you going to, like someone pointed out, how are you going to tell Pokemon to pay up? Who are you to tell Nintendo to pay you money? They're going to come at you with that guy with the stick. He's just going to show up. I mean,
All I know, I just care that I can still download Cult of the Lamb because I still haven't gotten to play it.
the fact is the game it got so panned. The idea was so bad that all these developers attacked Unity. They have so much bad press under them. Everyone's going everywhere else. The CEO had to quit like effective immediately. And he's the guy who is known for taking EA and making EA like what it is today, very microtransaction-y in what it pursues. He was the one who originally thought of games as a service. So he's made a career of driving companies into the ground, and this guy's finally let it keep going. So good for him. Well done. Nice to have a tradition.
One trick pony over here.
Yeah, it just takes him a decade to do it, and every
But
time, I
what
don't
if we
know.
nickeled and dimed everybody?
It's so incredibly stupid to just do this to someone, and effectively like all these games that we've talked about, some of these games we've talked about Pokemon Go on this podcast, we've talked about freaking Hollow Knight last week. There are games that like Hearthstone that have completely changed like gaming, and your plan is to like take from their success. Like you already have a subscription service, you already have it, and you decided to be greedy. Of all the flavors you chose to be, you decided to strip a bit too far. And you know what? They get what they deserve. At least I don't. From Software makes everything in house, so we don't have to worry about them. But otherwise, no, they don't deserve any. The Unity can go to heck. I don't care. All right, news over. Dawn.
Yeah, let's get spooky too. This is going to be more of a some of the creatures and enemies within the Elden Ring game, sort of talking about them and sort of how they relate to some real life critters, and as opposed to like we're not going to really get into lore or anything like that today.
Yeah, we're
So I know
not.
there's some more lore type reasons for some of these. That's not really what I'm here to do. But Vidya on YouTube does have some really good lore videos, and there's some other really great people out there that go deep into the lore of Elden Ring. Basically, you're the Tarnished, which is basically a group of sort of people or beings that can't die. I mean, you die, but you come back, and you're trying to be the Elden Lord, space elder gods, and there's other weird stuff, and there's a lot of things going on. But at the end of the day, you're a guy, and you want to get all the runes, which is this game's version of Souls, and you want to bonk everybody with your big whacking stick or sword of choice and be the number one,
Like no one ever was.
just like that.
So, what makes Elden Rings different from the other Souls
It's Elden
games?
Ring, one ring. There's one ring.
Sorry. What makes Elden Ring different from the Soul games?
Okay, well, so the Dark Souls and I guess the Demon Souls, but the Dark Souls trilogy all takes place within the same universe. And the Souls games, I mean, Elden Ring kind of does too, but the Souls games have a really overarching thing about the cycle of light and dark, life and death, and like typically that in like the first Dark Souls game involves like rekindling the fire, that like, but like because to prevent the Age of Darkness, because the previous basically like rulers of the in-game world wanted to continue the Age of Light, even sorry, I'm getting way into the weeds with this immediately. It's really hard not to. Basically, Elden Ring is a separate game from the Souls games. Mechanically, it's similar, but this is the first game we can jump in, which is very exciting. I think maybe you can jump in Sekiro, but in terms of like more of a Souls style game, you can jump. That's exciting.
Oh, like physically jump.
Yeah, like or I was wondering, like, oh, you mean like teleport or like? Oh no,
No,
you mean
I thought you meant like you could. This was the first like fresh entry into something.
no, yeah, well, it is, and it's also the Elden Ring's much more non-linear than all of the Souls games. The Souls games have like definitely some sort of choices in where you can go, but Elden Ring, the world is very, very open. You could skip around the whole first area if you wanted and go fight. You could go straight to late game areas to grab some cool weapons and stuff, or try to beat a boss really early that might unlock a cool thing. You could prioritize some quests, which are typically pretty obscure. Also, you get a little horse pony guy in this one. His name is Torrent, and he's like a goat horse, and he's your
Aw.
little buddy.
I've seen there's plenty of memes surrounding the games, and like you'll see different characters roaming in and out. Why was the turtle a pope?
because
Like
he
I
is.
saw, huh? Just
Because he is.
he's just the
So
Pope.
without getting too far, the current like I guess you could say religion sort of thing. The main is the Golden Order, which is sort of a religious institution, I guess you could say. That's also so I'm not the most well versed in all the lore, but they're sort of like the dominant force because they're backed by the Greater Will, which is like a again outer space gods. Once you get into the big parts of the lore, it's all like weird space stuff involved with stuff. But think like it's vaguely like a religion. Muriel is the Turtle Pope's name. He's a homie. You can bring him scroll books from sorcery or from faith magic, so like miracles or sorceries. And there's like other magic teachers in the game like will not accept certain types. They'll be like, oh, this is like we don't. This is bad magic, and he just says like he's just like heresy is just a construct. Let us learn together. So he's just a good wholesome fella, and he gives you some useful lore about the area he's in, about how the ruling family and their army there, instead of like because they the Golden Order couldn't defeat them in like pitched battles, they ended up marrying into them to like absorb them
Does he
into
do
their
anything,
ranks, I guess.
or does he
He
just sit there?
teaches you magic and he tells you nice things, and he's just a
Okay.
good fella.
Sometimes that's all you need. It's just like a little support.
I think the fact that people have tried to kill him and keep killing him, it should be a crime.
Yes, Turtle Pope is a good guy. You can kill the normal tortoises around the world, so it makes me sad. Their necks can be used. Elden Ring also added crafting, which is new. So like you can kill like like some wild sheep, and then you get their bones, and you can use those to make darts and just sort of things like that. Enemies drop materials as well.
It says if you kill him, he drops bell bearings and 10 turtleneck meat.
Yeah, so the turtleneck meats can be used to increase your stamina regeneration.
But at what cost?
Yeah, just I mean I don't even like killing the normal turtles when they're tortoises, but yes, I still don't like doing it.
I okay, so if there's a crafting system that's been added, is this one of those games where our weapons are gonna break every 5 seconds if I hit a rock?
No, no,
Okay, good.
Souls games have weapons durability. I don't think I've ever had a weapon break in Elden Ring. Dark Souls 2, your weapons would degrade a lot quicker. There was actually also several of the games have had spells called Acid Surge or equivalent type names that degrade the weapons and armor of the wearer. So you could do some really goofy troll builds in PvP where you could break people's weapons and armor.
See, that's my next question. I've seen the memes of like people like glowing red showing up in other people's games and messing up. Like, what is that from a game mechanic? Like, it just looks
So
like you're being a jerk.
yes, and I love it. So I love PvP and all the Souls games. So like base in some of the older Souls games, you could pretty much be invaded at any point when you were online or if you were at full humanity, which like gave you a little extra health at the cost of being invaded. But the newer Souls games, in Elden Ring specifically, like to get invaded, you have to either use a specific item that invites invaders into your world called a Taunter's Tongue, or you have to be engaging in co-op, and that's sort of the game's I guess you could call it balancing or sort of the cost. So you can, have your buddy come into your world to help you, venture through an area or fight a boss. But by doing so, you're also opening yourself up to being invaded by people that want to kill you and your buddy. So it's sort of a risk reward system.
What do you gain for jumping in and kicking some dude off a cliff?
Runes. So one you get their runes, or a certain percentage of that, which is like the level up in the currency. Also, it's the combat is just enjoyable.
Mm.
So that's fun. Sometimes you get a little bit of hate mail. Sometimes that's fun, depending on your mood. Um, there's a few quests in the game and stuff where you need to get a couple kills and invasions. Use that. Some of the other games specifically required you to get like a certain amount of PvP wins to unlock some late game spells as well.
I'm just imagining what other video games would look like with a feature like this. Like,
Yeah, some of the crazier ones like Dark Souls 2, you could just be invaded at pretty much any point if unless you specifically did something to not be. I think you had to have full like humanity or whichever it was called in that game. You couldn't be hollowed, so you had to have like full maximum HP. But and then those games also had a sin system where by doing a lot of invasions you accumulated sin, and then you could be invaded even when you were trying not to be, by basically people they would spawn in as blue characters, and that's a thing you can do now, where you can join a covenant where you will be able to basically you can if someone else gets invaded, you can be automatically summoned into their world to help them fight the invader.
Oh, okay. So you get a bodyguard.
Sort of, yeah.
Okay. Again, just imagine like what like Madden would be like if like you were losing a game, all of a sudden another team shows up to back you up.
That
Or
would
to
be kind of
beat you
sick,
more.
actually.
Oh God, the Buccaneers are losing. Quick, call the Dolphins. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, the stadium, like the Miami Dolphins, also rush the field.
I like how those were your. I guess you're Florida. I just like that those are your two reference points.
Listen, my coworkers asked us to be part of a Pick'ems league, and I'm in fifth place, and I have to take it out on somebody, so I'm taking it out on this podcast. I mean, at least I'm beating some of the people who actually like football more than me, so that feels good. Oh, I mean, these games have certainly been successful, but what is it to be said about the difficulty? I kind of feel like we should end off on that. Like, the whole meme, the entire meme is that every FromSoft game is like deceptively hard to the point that now any game that is hard is like, oh, this is the Dark Souls of blank. This is the Elden Ring of blank. Like, why? Is it
So yeah,
even hard?
so Dark Souls games as a whole, and I'm lumping in all the Souls games plus Sekiro plus Bloodborne and all of those have always like had a reputation for being very punishing, and they've definitely leaned into it. Like the Dark Souls Game of the Year special edition was called the Prepare to Die edition. So it's definitely leaned into it. But at the same time, as the controls have gotten more a little more fluid and stuff, timings. As I will say, the enemies in this game, some of them are particularly challenging because with the I guess maybe some advances. I can't claim to speak well on the like programming side of things, but some of the enemies move sets in this they'll have like because this FromSoft games as a whole really rely on a little bit of trial and error, and then like recognizing enemy patterns and knowing like when to dodge, typically through rolling. You can block things with the shield as well, but it's risky because if your stamina gets run out while you're blocking, you're basically staggered and you can be critical. And it's just generally better to roll through things. You have some invincibility frames while you roll. So really, it's like, but it's a game where you're going to die, and you're probably going to die a lot, especially if you're new to the series. But then like that's sort of what makes the series so great is once you do take down like Melania or the Foom Knight or Manus or like the sorry, Darky or Madir or like another like Slave Knight Gale or like another very famous like known to be very difficult Dark Souls or Elden Ring boss. Like you feel a really like I guess level of accomplishment compared to other games where like maybe it's a little easier. But like once you really like because I've lost track of the amount of times where I fought, bosses throughout the Souls series, Elden Ring, Bloodborne, whatever, where you just getting beaten into the ground, then all of a sudden you fight them and they just can't touch you. You just roll through, dodge every space out, every attack, and just then suddenly you just go from just getting destroyed to almost beating them flawlessly. And it's just a really great feeling that I don't think you get from a ton of games sometimes.
No, I think a lot of games are kind of built to make you feel like, the superhero. Like, even if it's not a superhero game, you're meant to feel the power, the control, all of it. And so when a game actively makes you, no, no, we're going to kick you. And then you got to get up again until we stop. And then you got to kick us back. I feel that there's a place for that in human psychology.
And that's sort of the whole sorry, and then like within the Soul series, that's sort of the whole thing is despite like because I'm going to reference not Elden Ring, I'm going to reference Dark Souls 2 and some of the other Souls games where there's excuse me a thing called hollowing where basically it's other undead like you that have just totally given up and their minds go and they're just like mindless zombies and stuff, and it's basically saying like it doesn't matter how many times you lose as long as you don't quit. And I think that's sort of a key tenet of the Souls games. If you think of it from a boss's perspective, you're hanging out, this random little dude comes in with a rusty sword and you smack him across the room. Then he comes back the next time and oh, he hit you this time. And then he comes back 100 more times. Like it's a terrifying concept to be a Souls boss. It would be like if you had to fight a rat with a toothpick and every time you did it managed to stab you a little more.
I mean, that's an amazing way to look at it. I wouldn't even consider. Now I'm looking for rats. Now I'm actively looking in my room for rats.
You gotta be ready.
Gotta be prepared. Maybe it's the geese outside. Who knows? But I mean, clearly these games are successful, even if they're not my cup of tea because I like feeling more powerful in my games, or I just never been my
That's
thing.
it. You can like once you do get to that point, or like Elden Ring has some of the late game spells or weapon arts, which is like special moves that certain weapons can do. You do feel very powerful when you start throwing moons at people. It's a pretty good feeling.
I mean, it sounds awesome, but I wanted to talk more about some of the critters because as you see the memes, you see the let's plays, you see horrific monsters coming at you. You see people with dragon arms coming at you. Like there's all kinds of weirdness. And in my biology brain, I'm like thinking, okay, how would this work? Even though it's magic, like even though there's no logical reason you're supposed to be fine, I can't turn that part of my brain off. So we asked you to bring us some critters.
Yeah, so I'm
And
gonna do my best here. Like I said, I'm mainly gonna kind of go with just sort of my own thoughts slash like a little bit. I'm not gonna get too much into the lore. If I make a lore mistake, please feel free to yell at us on Twitter or whatever, or in the Discord. But yeah, so let's jump into it. So the first one, and these guys, well, I know you guys haven't played, but there's a chest in an early area of the game, and in peak from soft fashion. When you open this chest, thinking you're gonna get, maybe a cool new sword or some armor, instead there's a big puff of smoke, and it teleports you deep into a random mine where you've never been. And in that mine are these things called the Kindred of Rot. And if you want to Google them, Chris, real quick.
yes, I made the mistake of Googling them earlier, so the surprise is lost on me, but Chris has not.
I don't like this.
Yeah, it's
It's
not
like
great.
bony insectoid spear wielders.
Why does it look squishy?
I think
It
they're
looks
more
like
crunchy.
bones.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm looking at the picture. That's what's weirding me out. Like, they look like bones, but there's also a part of it that makes me think it would go squish, and I don't like it.
Also, they do this thing, and you'd have to find a video probably. But the Kindred of Rot have a unique attack that, especially early game, you typically haven't really done much. I mean, I know some people, they found this chest before they even figured out how to level up in the game, so they were really, really not ready for what happened. There's the Kindred of Rot have this move where they shoot like basically like spider web threads off their backs. So if you look up Kindred of Rot pest threads, they're very much, especially well, early game. I'd say they're late game not particularly. They're annoying because the threads they shoot out have shockingly good homing, and when you're early game, if you come to this place very
Yeah.
early, like they hit quite hard. But they're pretty glass cannons. If you can close the gap and hit one with something, they're not too hard to beat, and they stagger.
I don't like it's like they're shooting like web arrows.
Yes,
Well,
yeah, and they hit really hard, and they said that they have insane tracking on them.
that sounds less like a spider and more like a velvet worm.
Well, that's actually in my note list, and that's something I was going to get to. So, body wise, they seem to be sort of shrimpy, maybe a little bit of centipede. I feel like,
Or like crawfish.
yeah, little bit of that. We actually do have crawfish in this game, which are more like giant pistol shrimp, the size of like a car that can shoot you from 400 yards away. But those are a different thing. But yeah, so like Lucas said, the velvet worms, and I know Lucas, you're not about the velvet worms.
Creepy little critters. Love them, but still creepy.
Yeah, Chris, do you know about velvet worms?
I do not, but I have already looked them up and I don't like it.
So the velvet worm is a really really cool kind of guy. One, they're very very old, and they are sort of like a mini-legged sort of, think like a soft centipede, but they're in their own thing. They're closely related. They're part of the only phylum in Animalia that's actually wholly in terrestrial environments. And they're like sort of closely related to arthropods and tardigrades. So they're kind of their own weird little thing. They also have live young, which is interesting, and they have lobopods, which basically means stub feet, which is fun as well.
Yeah,
And they can have between
the feet
13
are
and
weird.
we have 13 and 43 pairs of legs.
I don't. What's okay? Sorry. There's a National Geographic video that says this worm uses a quote silly string of death.
Yes, so this is why. So the velvet worm is really one of the few animals at all that uses, like, I mean, spiders catch things with their silk. There's a few that sort of shoot it. The velvet worm has two specialized slime glands near their mouth where they shoot slime. And it's like a sticky threads, and it can entangle their prey. And it's sort of their main method of predation. Unlike the kindred of rot, which seem to be crunchy, velvet worms actually don't have a rigid exoskeleton. They're totally fluid filled and sort of a hydrostatics, more like sea anemones and worms.
Yeah, if you really want to be unsettled, Chris, Google velvet worm size.
Some of them get big.
Yeah, some of them get quite huge.
Uh,
Yeah, we got you. It's horrible.
yeah, no, thank you. I don't need to know this thing exists.
Now give it a spear and let it poke you
Where does this thing like? What part of the world does this thing live in?
In your house.
in your walls.
I doubt it. I would have seen it.
Nah, they like warm climates. They prefer the Central America, Brazil, Australia, parts of Africa. I think some
Yes, little
parts of
bits of
Southeast
Africa,
Asia.
some Southeast Asia. Yeah, they really like high humidity. I believe is very important to them.
Yeah, I mean with the squishy skin, it makes sense. Like you can't hold moisture, so you need moisture around you.
Yeah, but it really is like if you watch the video of the silly string of death, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, it's honestly one of those like, why haven't you made a Pokemon about it yet? Sort of things.
I
But
think they're
like,
cute. Honestly, I think they're cute.
they have little nubby feet, and I think that's what helps.
They sort of have little lumpy faces. They don't really have eyes, which maybe people find off-putting, and their actual mandibles are quite
Upsetting.
impressive.
Yeah. I mean, it's not. I like how we started with this one because, like, of all the
There's
things to
one
start.
rolled over on his back though with his little belly, and like I kind of want to give him belly rubs.
You can do that, Don.
So, rule of thumb of what I'm learning is don't open the chest.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell anyone where it is. One day you guys will play the game, and I will not tell you where the chest is.
I've got it. I've got it. I just haven't opened it.
Do you have what game do you have? What system do you have it on?
Xbox.
Oh, okay, I was like, we're playing. Well, now I guess we can't.
No, you can jump in and help me in Bloodborne, but that's it.
All right. So we'll hop on to the next guy, I guess. This guy's kind of a fun little dude, and he's been in quite a few FromSoft games, and that's the Basilisk. Lucas, you've seen the FromSoft Basilisk now, I assume.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at it now. It is certainly a creature.
This is not a basilisk.
Well, some of the oldest basilisks in lore are not always like full on snake mode. I
No,
think
I
there's even
know.
like
I know they're not full on snaky snake, but like they are not giant eyed frogs.
so this is actually a very interesting basilisk fact about the FromSoft basilisks. Those are not their real eyes.
What?
Correct.
I like that it has the big eyes because that kind of ties with the like basilisk like death stare and all that.
Yeah, so
Oh my
basilisks,
god. That is
you
horrifying.
see his real little eyes?
I don't want to see the real little eyes. Oh my god.
It's worse, right?
It's so much worse. Oh no.
Yes. So the basilisks in FromSoft games, sort of a fun little twist on the death stare. They typically exhale. Sort of they have like a throat pouch like a frog. They'll exhale. You can see it in that one picture, a
Mhm.
mist in the air. In some of the games, it inflicts petrification, which is instantly
Yeah.
kills you if the bar fills. In some games, it inflicts it curses you, which drains your maximum health permanent. Well, not permanently, but you can go restore it, but you have to go use an item. And in this game, it inflicts death blight, which has a brutal animation. I will say honestly, if you guys would like to Google death blight proc real quick, because this is kind of fun for me, and I think people will enjoy the reaction.
What death like what?
Death blight.
Oh no. Oh, that's not okay at all.
Yeah, it's not good. Not a good way to go.
Why am I a tree?
What I will say looking at it, so there is another thing. So basilisks in lower basilisks and cockatrices are very close together. Um and if I'm remembering it correctly, I think that the way you get a basilisk is a chicken sits on like a snake or a frog egg, and a cockatrice is the inverse. So
One of them
it's
involves a rooster laying an egg too.
Yeah, the cockatrice I think is like a snake or a frog sitting on like a chicken egg.
Yeah, but one of them, it's specifically a rooster has to lay the egg,
I think that's
not just a
cockatrice.
chicken. Yeah, anyway, yeah.
Um,
So the
and
basilisk,
I feel like this is more like cockatrice vibes, but like same because it's got like the beak too, like it's got a little beaky thing.
yeah, it's his little mouth. He's got teeth though, which should well, teeth should exclude frogs and bird bases for him. So maybe he's more lizardy.
Well,
I mean,
His
cockatrices
when you look at his
are dragons or wyverns, so
that's true. I'm thinking about the ones in RuneScape that have, I think, bird faces.
so
Yes, and
do these things live in an environment where they are much bigger predators than this thing?
so you find them in the Lake of Rot, which I said does have the Kindred of Rot there, but there's also a few larger things there. The Dragonkin soldier is a very large dude. Um, you typically find them in caves, in dark places, often places that have some water. There's a place called an underground area called the Deep Root Depths, where they're found around the waterfalls. Areas that have an affinity with Death Blight sometimes have them as well, but they typically seem to like underground and sort of shady places and stuff, places where you would find an amphibian.
I mean, like when I'm seeing the eyes, obviously they're a weapon, but like also I just keep thinking of all the prey items that have false eyes in order to like distract their like predators to make
Well,
them
so
think they're
the
bigger than they
eyes
are.
with them are interesting. So like one, they also are um maybe it's a little nod to the eyes not being their real weak spot. The basilisks are actually immune to critical hits. So like in Elden Ring, if you break an enemy's stance, and depending on what they are, they take a knee, they fall over. Normally there will be a spot where you can go up and you get like a critical hit, and you do like a little more fancy animation, like a big stab, and you do a big chunk of damage. But stance breaking a basilisk only really stuns it for a second. And maybe that's sort of a nod to its false eyes, because we know in real life there's frogs. I mean, like tons of animals employ false eyes. There's most of them don't have them so close to their real faces, but when you exhale death mist, maybe that's a better move. Because we see lots of fish, moths, other like actual frogs and stuff will use false eyes typically towards the tail or in an area where if a predator were to attack that piece of you, it's a piece you can get by without. But I do wonder if maybe the eyes are or maybe they're like full of, and maybe puffs them up because we see it has a little throat pouch, so maybe the eyes are puffed up, so they're just like little balloons, like a Wobbuffet situation, and so maybe that's why.
I I looked at this list of creatures and I thought, okay, this one should be fine. And this one Reddit post changed me. No, I
Their
don't
little
want it.
their little
Bring back
eyes, yeah, that they become so much more sinister when you can see when you know their actual eyes are like that. They're no longer just goofy little guys.
bring back the velvet worms with the sharp sticks. At least I know what I'm fighting. I don't want to fight this. I
Yeah, and
want
we
to
do
go
see
home.
yeah, and in nature we do see we don't have, I mean, obviously there's poison dart frogs, which you sort of have to touch. I can't think if there's any frogs that really aerosolize their defense. We do see that in some beetles, like the bombardier beetle, can they can have a like a caustic spray they can use. We see it in tarantulas can flick their the irritating hairs, but I mean there really isn't at least to my knowledge in real life, a specific animal that exhales death mist. So maybe that's good.
Yeah, no, I think nature is I think nature doesn't need that. I think there's enough horrifying things that nature can do to us already. Um so do you moving on, like again, I don't know where to go from here because this thing was honestly the least terrifying to me and now you've ruined it.
I've already looked ahead, and you're not going to be happy, Lucas.
This was an enemy that was featured in the trailer itself for Elden Ring. We finally got a real trailer. And it's sort of a three part sort of thing. I said Elden Ring has a lot of things to do with space, particularly if you follow the quest line of a character called Ronnie the Witch, who many
Is it
people
the blue one
big
with the
fans,
multiple arms?
lot of waifooing going on about with Ronnie the Witch sometimes. It's the blue one with the arms, and that's not even really her. It's a puppet. She's like actually from a lore standpoint, she's actually, it's like not even her real body. And her whole thing is she wants you to basically find this weapon that you can use to effectively kill the emissaries of the greater will, because she wants to usurp the current like alpha god situation and install her own age of stars. I think she call is the name of
Neat.
the ending. But
I get
basically
that.
she wants to become the dominant force. Yeah, and like I said, but she's fun. Well, there's one part in the game where she like tells you how like you're her champion and all this stuff, and then she's like, now leave. And if you stand there for too long, she just instantly
Oh,
kills you. So like that's sort of like she's a lot more powerful than her like sort of like fun little like, because she's kind of like I guess she's
She's
nicer
like,
to the
I
player
said
character than a
leave.
lot of NPCs. That's basically what she does. And
did I
talks
stutter?
and she talks very ye olde.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot of thous and thouist and stuff like that. And she's got a cool guy that's got a wolf head for a head,
Sweet.
and
So
he's a
what
cool
does she
dude
have
too.
to do with the next critter?
So one of these the largest one of these three things so these all come from space. Basically. And one of them is Estelle, natural born of the void, or just an Estelle, because there's more than one. But all the Estelles have titles. There's only two. If you guys would like to Google the Estelle, natural born of the void,
Can someone does From Software have a therapist on site to
Who
talk to these
who
people?
who hurt you?
Who hurt
so
them?
the Estelles are one gigantic. Um, Estelle comes from space. Um, in Elden Ring, there's an underground areas called the Eternal Cities, where they have like beautiful, like basically galaxies along the ceilings of these caves. It's like these beautiful ancient temples, and was totally wiped out because an Estelle destroyed it a long time ago. And you have to go down there and fight it to get to a certain thing. Also, you can make a really cool weapon out of one of its wings that you can use to do like space explosions with. So that's neat. Also, it's really, really big. They have a command of like gravity magic. They can like levitate you off the ground and slam you into it. They can teleport. They can grab you, and if they grab you, you basically die because they chomp you a lot. And like I said, they're really, really big.
Yeah, this is cosmic horror at its finest.
Yes, so there's the Estelle, and then related to the Estelle, at least in my opinion, this is sort of a there's the malformed star, which if you look at that, the malformed star is sort of they hang upside down from the ceiling. They're also really big. They kind of have a similar face to the Estelle, but upside down. They shoot and they use gravity magic to shoot
It's more like a trap setting version.
which is a quadrupedal guy, big jaws, sort of spiky tail, much more of a physical kind of guy than the other two.
It looks more
Uh,
fluffy.
It
Kind of a
looks
little
like
bit
someone
fluffy.
tried to pet it and died.
Also controls gravity magic. But
So
so
what's the deal with these guys? What's the uniting factor?
there is a certain Pokemon line, I guess you could say, that has some similarities with the Estelle. Do you guys want to guess who it is?
Iron
Honestly, like
Iron Moth.
No. So the Estelle, from a mandibles and wing standpoint, uh, looks like a
oh,
lace wing.
oh, Trapinch.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an antlion.
Well,
Oh,
so
okay.
Estelle is a lace wing, or it looks a lot like a lace wing. And lace wings, not all lace wing larvae are of the trapinch style, aren't all antlions. If you look up a lace wing larva, they look almost exactly, I mean, not exactly, because one of them is the size of a school bus and one of them is a little dude. But if you look up a lace wing larva and then look at a falling star beast,
Yeah, it's got that little yeah,
Yeah.
I can see it.
Hmm.
yeah, big jaws, sort of. Yeah. So, and we do see. I said like as far as I know in the game, I don't think there's anything confirmed that the falling star beasts are related to the Estelles, but they're from space. They got big mandibles. They do gravity stuff. Um, I'm kind of calling it that they are. I'm gonna. I think that sort of like seems to be the consensus. And then the malformed star, I think, is either some it could either be like a pupa stage, or it could be some insects have it where like one of the two sexes is like semi immobile or maybe doesn't have wings, like we see with some ants, certain wasps, stuff like that. Certain moths, even the female will not even have wings, be a lot more stationary. Or the malformed star could be like a pupa phase of an Estelle. where maybe it eventually goes up, and the throwing big rocks with gravity magic is sort of its like defense mechanism. And if you get up close, they will bite you. And I think there are a few pupae that have like sort of false mandibles and can sort of flop about a little bit in real life if they're threatened. So that's not too crazy.
I, for me, I'm looking at this and think like this is honestly what I think would look like to like going back to Pokemon. Like this is what Rayquaza sees when Deoxys shows up.
What,
Like
the
this
Falling
is
Star Beast or Estelle?
Estelle. Like he sees the
Estelle also
Stell.
full on Necrozma basically. The Eternal City, which it's a beautiful area, and the Estelle boss fight's really cool. There's a lore quote of Estelle, a malformed star born in the void once destroyed an Eternal City and took away their sky. So he basically he pulled an Ultra Necrozma.
That is horrifying. This is not. I don't. This is not okay.
Oh,
That
and
this
to get
thing
it,
should.
to get to Estelle, you have to cross the Lake of Scarlet Rot, then go down past the river of the Scarlet Rot that's full of our good old kindred of rot buddies. Then you climb in a coffin and ride it down a waterfall of the Scarlet Rot.
So you have to fight the basilisks a bunch of times and the Velvet Worm boys to get to the cosmic entity bug of death and despair.
Yeah, that tracks. That
Because
tracks.
a blue girl with 4 arms asked you nicely.
Very. I mean, like I've seen the art. She apparently asked quite nicely. It's unsettling.
But you also get one of my favorite weapons in the game, the Moonlight Greatsword. So
Okay.
or Dark Moon Greatsword, which
Well,
is in every
okay, if it's
FromSoft
for
game,
loot.
including even Armored Core. It's in all the games.
Oh, I have seen this in Armored Core. I've seen some
The
people posting
Moonlight
about it. Yeah,
Sword.
no, if yeah, why didn't you say it was for loot? Yeah, I'll do this for loot.
Yeah,
I'll do
that's the
anything for
in
loot.
quest reward. Yeah, so like the Moonlight Greatsword, I think goes all the way back, or sometimes it's the Dark Moon Sword or the Moonlight Sword, but it goes all the way back to I think at least Demon Souls, probably earlier. It's in Bloodborne. I don't think it's in Sekiro because there's only like one sword in Sekiro, but it's a
It,
recurring theme.
do you have to beat a cosmic horror to get the sword in each game, or is that just this thing?
In the first one, you be in Demon Souls. I think you have to cut the tail off Seath the Scaleless, who's like an ancient dragon that's also a wizard and has no scales. In the second one, you have to beat Duke's Deer Freya on an increased difficulty thing. Duke's Deer Freya is a giant two-headed spider. Heads are on opposite ends, so it can always bite you. The third one, I don't remember who you have to kill in the third one. In Bloodborne, you have to defeat Ludwig, who's like this giant half horse monster person, not like a centaur, like way grosser than a centaur.
I'm not
Um,
looking it up.
Yeah, you're not tricking me on this one, Don.
Yeah, nah, nice try. Get behind me, Satan. I ain't doing it.
but yeah, so I think the Estelle line, I'm gonna call them a line, like they're a Pokemon. But
The family.
I think they have a lot of similarities. I think they're great big space lacewings, and lacewings in real life are actually a very interesting group of insects. Which I should talk about the actual bug, or technically they're not a bug, they're an insect. But yeah, Neuroptera or Neuroptera is the net-winged insects, which includes lacewings, mantid flies, and antlions. Mantid flies are also crazy, but we're looking at your classic lacewings. They're pretty old. They've been called the butterflies of the Jurassic. They go all the way back to the Permian period. They're pretty soft-bodied, um, but they're very predatory. The larvae are typically specialized. They have like long mandibles, which are sort of designed for and their abdomen can sometimes has adhesive discs on the last two segments to help them like stick on the leaves and stuff. Lacewing are also used for biological control in gardens and stuff. You can put their larvae out there, and they really eat a lot of aphids, so they're really great for that. Some other lacewing larvae will pile the dead bodies of their prey on top of their own bodies to use them as camouflage.
Like they just stack corpses on top of themselves.
Yes,
I
It's
mean,
pretty metal.
points for industriousness.
yeah. Which if you look at the malformed star, it's kind of got like a weird crunchy thing. It could be a bunch of bodies on it. Maybe it's holding them on there with gravity wizardry. Yeah, they're a pretty interesting group. They're pretty much all predatory. They go back pretty far. Also, if there's any Mistborn fans, this is sort of how I imagine a mystery to look. Any Brandon Sanderson fans out there, but yeah. So there's several types of slimes in Elden Ring. They're very slow, as you would imagine. They can sort of shoot out these little spikies. Excuse me. And by shoot out, I mean like just out of their bodies. They can't launch them. But they're pretty hard to kill with physical damage because they're a squishy pile with some bones in it. Like they're not really. I don't think there's a lot of important bits to hit. Um, they don't like being set on fire though, so that's a good tip
See, I was
for them.
like, with everything else you've shown me, I've figured out how to kill it because I can look at it and be like, all right, I might not be strong enough, but I can tell where to whack it. I have no idea how to whack this thing.
Yeah, that's sort of like they're really annoying. Also, like they're pretty small, other than the giant skeletal slime, which is not small. But yeah, they're kind of just there. They're kind of gross. They make a little squishy noise. They're hostile to you, but they're so slow. They're kind of irrelevant. But they can like if they do hit you, it'll stagger you. So it's like really an annoying thing to have if you're fighting a more sort of important enemy.
I'm just looking at this thing like, what does it look like if one of the little ones kill you? Do you just like pass out and like it just the you died thing comes up, or
You
does it
just
eat
fall
you?
over. I think you just fall over. It pokes you and you die. Then you turn into dust or whatever. Sorry. Um, but yeah, so I mean, skeletal slime. In the games, you find them uh, kind of on some water areas around this one lake, on beaches in Western Limgrave, which is the starter area, and you find them in some underground catacombs as well. Basically, places that are shady or wet, places where slimes like. Um, yeah, there is also the giant skeletal slime. If you guys would like to Google that one, it's a little more
Oh,
impressive.
I've already found it. Yeah, it looks like the meat they probably used to make gas station hot dogs.
Well, that it's it. Yeah, well, it also looks like that. It lives in the Writhe Blood ruins in the Mogwin dynasty. Mogwin is a guy that worships like the blood god, basically, and
Oh,
is like one of the harder bosses in Elden Ring.
cool.
Really cool boss fight. It's really fun because like he starts. There's a point in the boss fight where he starts counting in Latin, and it's always bad when the boss starts counting in Latin.
Yeah, that's generally a red flag in
If
video
anyone,
games.
if that's in anything in life, if you just walk through the grocery store and there's a guy standing in the aisle counting in Latin, I'm leaving.
You're gonna get all these people who like read Da Vinci Code circa like 2005 being like, "Oh no."
No, not
Yeah, well,
again.
there's sort of the whole thing with him, and a little quick aside is he so Elden Ring has a status called blood loss, where if your meter gets filled up, you take a big burst of damage, and like it's like you lost a bunch of blood all of a sudden. And during the fight, Mog, at about half health, he'll say like he'll start counting backwards from three in Latin. And when he hits zero, he'll like start chanting for a second. And each time he says like the numbers, you'll get a red circle around you, and then you get three consecutive blood loss procs, which can like basically wipe out your health. You almost have to heal in between or have a certain item ready. And it heals him when he does it and he powers up. But the skeletal slimes have some similarities with a few critters. One, or I guess we could say like sort of some. I think there's a little bit of nudibranch to them, because we do see nudibranchs and sea slugs will pick up because like the things they stab you with kind of look like little bone protrusions, and that sort of makes me think of how nudibranchs that prey on either jellyfish or sand enemies will sequester the stinging cells and then use them for their own defense. These guys seem to prey on vertebrates, so they sequester the bones and they use them for their defense. Yeah, but no, the skeletal slime's kind of just like a goofy little guy. Um, they drop bones, which you would expect them to drop because they're full of bones.
I I have a love for I have a love for a creature that sequesters things from other animals. Like I like how poison dart frogs sequester their toxins from the ants they eat. I like how the Nidarians seem to sequester the toxins from the jellies or the anemone. So I like this idea of a slime not just digesting everything, but keeping the sharper bones out to protect itself. I think that's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, and we see a little bit of sort of similarity with like I said, certain lacewing larvae. Put the bodies of their victims on top of themselves for camouflage. And there's some areas where you see the skeletal slimes, and they'll be sort of in an underground area, maybe some catacombs, probably some bones lying around. Makes them a little harder to spot. Luckily, they make a gross squelching noise, so that makes them easier to spot. Yeah, there's not too much to say about them. There's a few other animals that sort of have some just basically like you see some sea cucumbers and some sponges develop like calcified spines.
Well, Don, thank you so much for sharing the unending horrors that From Software has produced. I appreciate you and what you've done. Thank you for giving me something to think about when I go to sleep tonight.
Yeah, anytime. Always happy to, add some spookiness to the world.
And if you want something real spooky, listeners, you should watch Reign of Fire.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
no.
There's so many great dragons in this game actually, too.
Okay. No. No. We're done. We're already an hour
Did you
in.
know that you can get spells in this game, Chris, where you summon the aspects of a giant dragon head and then you breathe different types of fire?
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Uh, well, folks, thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day or night. We'll see you guys in the next one. Happy Halloween, everybody. Bye.